morning, Imagine Church, and happy Sunday, and happy 7th year anniversary to Imagine. Today marks the 7th year since Imagine started. It started out of the humble beginnings of our home with a handful of people that we actually didn't even know before we moved back on island. And we'll share a little bit more about that in a little bit, because that's what today is going to be all about. Today is going to be a time where we remember our journey. Today is a time where we will honor and celebrate all of God's faithfulness all along the way. And so you're going to be hearing stories from different people that highlight specific chapters of when Imagine was meeting at a certain place and what was happening during that time. You're going to actually get glimpses into even footage that we had from the early days to the middle days to the now days. And it's really going to give you a broader perspective of the unfolding story of Imagine and the different people that have played such special roles throughout the story. You're also going to be able to hear some worship songs that were our anthem in the early days. So songs that I remember worshiping to since back in the day homes. And you're going to hear people singing these songs that were with us from the early days. And so if you have contributed by telling your story or by worship, or even the editors who have helped make this possible today, thank you so much for all of your time and your sacrifice that has allowed this to be possible. And thank you for all of the people who have continued to support and to encourage us to keep going. It has been a wild, beautiful adventure. I could honestly say since looking back 7 years ago till now, and truly blown away by what God has done with our story. Throughout it all, He's been faithful, He's been real, He's been near through the trying hard times and through the good times. And so we invite you to be part of this beautiful celebration this morning together. And as we move forward in worship, we also want to invite you to give out of a form of worship, to give out of your financial generosity that has allowed Imagine to be who Imagine is and to be where Imagine is at. Would you know that your financial generosity is a gift to the church, is a gift to the community, and is an extension of a posture of worship that we want to invite you in. And so the way that you can do so is there is a tab on this platform right now. I think there's a tab that you can click that says donate. Or you can also go online to our website, www.imaginehi.org. And you should find a donate button that you can click, and you could be able to give there as well. And so, again, it's been an incredible journey. And I look forward to seeing you again in person, or whatever that context looks like. But would you know that we did it? We did it to year 7, and we did it together. And we are just so grateful.
I could just stay right where I am and hope to feel What if we're all a part of a story bigger and more beautiful than we've ever imagined? What are the threads woven through the fabric of the universe holding us all together? How long are we going to silence that voice within saying, I just want to be free?
Why is the desire for freedom within us so powerful, and yet the experience of it so elusive? What if tomorrow doesn't have to be a repeat of today? Is a different future even possible?
Is it possible to find rest for a restless soul? Why do we keep holding on to the past?
Why are we constantly trying to control the future?
Why is it so hard to be present to the gift of the moment?
Does our work even matter?
Can we actually create something meaningful with our lives? Something that has value and worth?
Is there hope for beauty to emerge out of the chaos of our lives? Where are we actually going?
We all long to be invited into something real.
To have our lives stitched together and woven into the fabric of life itself. We don't just want to be alive, we want to create life.
We don't just want to be free, we want to create freedom. We want to become so utterly free that our very act of existence is a rebellion against the status quo.
We want our lives to change the atmosphere of life itself.
We want to unleash our imagination into the world around us. We don't just want the right information in our brain, we want fireworks in our soul.
We're not willing to settle for simple black and white answers in a world filled with complexity and color. We're not asking for permission to be exactly who we've been created to be.
While others try to think outside the box, we understand that there is no box. We are a movement of dreamers, compelled to imagine a better world, and we are committed to spend the rest of our lives trying to create it.
Seven years. And here we are. And looking back and watching that film brings back just so many different emotions. 7 years ago was when we started the church out of our home. 7 years ago was when we crashed a party out in Makaha. It was a birthday party for several different people. And Imagine essentially started kind of a flow through that of meeting people at this party.
And we basically crashed a party where we knew one person. And that party really ended up like foreshadowing the whole next 3 years of Imagine, because probably 10-ish people we met at that party formed the core of Imagine that really would be there for the next few years.
But when I watch this film, the biggest essence that I pull from it is this whimsical sense of wonder, this beautiful sense of imagination. This film really was a film about possibilities. It was the beginning of when we started the church, and we hadn't experienced any pain. There was no heartbreak, there was no loss, there were no major conflicts. It was a group of people, a group of friends that were journeying through life together.
Here's what I would say. When I see that film, I think this: imagination always comes before implementation.
Yeah.
And so when I see that, I'm like, it's a film where
him again with his one-liners, right?
It's all about possibilities. It's all about what could be. It's all about what kind of a church can we be? Can we be a church that's that open? Can you be a church that is that inclusive, that's that welcoming? Like it's daring to ask what if in a culture that's bound by what is.
I started coming to Imagine about 6 years ago when Imagine was still meeting at the Sweeney House, which was a really sweet time and it felt like family. And having been to Imagine for this long, it's really, really wonderful to see the way that Imagine has changed itself through all the spaces and with all the people who've come and gone. It feels like such an honor and a privilege to grow alongside with Imagine these past couple of years.
So I started going to Imagine 7 years ago, and that's when, Imagine was gathering for the first time in the original living room, which was Kevin and Christine's house. One word or thing that just really describes what Imagine is. And I just kept thinking about like a lifeboat or a life raft. Because you're out at sea, way out at sea in the middle of the ocean. You can see land, but you're way out. And a life raft is life. Imagine is life. It's a place, to rest, to reflect. But also a life raft is a really uncomfortable place. You can't just stay there and do nothing, because you'll die. You still need to, put in the work. You need to grow. You need to do whatever it is that you have to do to get to where you need to be or want to be.
I first started, I think it was the second or third week of July in the house. And if I was to describe Imagine in one word, it would be family. And I first got connected with Imagine because at the school I was going to, Kev was actually a teacher and he was flexing on me. So I decided to show up and flex on Kev. And I've been here ever since, just flexing. So, what's up, Kev? Appreciate you, bro. And Gish too. Everybody else. Appreciate you.
I believe it was back in 2013 when I first started my journey with Imagine, and we were back then meeting at the Sweeney's residence, which was in Kahala. So every Sunday we would get in our car and drive the drive from the west side to the east side.
I started coming to Imagine, I want to say maybe 6.5 years ago. Imagine was meeting in Kevin and Christine's house when they lived in Diamond Head. I really missed that house. It was very welcoming, very warm, and I had my own seat over in the corner, hidden in the shadows, and I really miss being able to hide.
That first Sunday, I remember Christine pulled me aside and said that they had heard a lot about me from our friends, but they figured that I was just going to leave, and Christine said that she couldn't commit to really accepting me into the church and said I was just going to leave. And so I was like, I'm gonna stay. I like this place. And I remember first time hearing Kevin communicate. Growing up in the church like I did, my dad was a pastor. I was around sermons all the time. It was the first time I had really been around someone who communicated the way that Kevin did. And so just from a public speaking perspective, it was different than what I had ever been around, and the way that he presented the gospel was just so fresh and new, and for me intriguing. Imagine was home for me in a time when I was far from home. My mom and dad were back on the mainland, and they walked through a divorce, and Imagine was there for me during a really, really hard time, and helped me see my walk with the Lord in a depth and an understanding that I had never known before. That it's beyond just faith. It's a connection to our emotions and learning to let go, learning to surrender, all of those things.
Imagine has taught me that it's okay to be different, that it's okay to feel pain, and that death does not have the final word, for sure. Those three things. Yeah, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without Imagine, without Kevin and Christine, without all my friends, without everyone who comes to Imagine. Yeah, definitely an awesome place to be. Super unique. I wouldn't trade it with any other church. And I'm just excited to see where this family goes. And I'm super stoked to be a part of it for 7 years and to continue to be a part of it. I don't know what the future holds, but Imagine will always have a place in my heart.
If I could say one thing to people about Imagine and life with Christ, it would be just don't wait, and to start from wherever it is that you are right now. And that goes for, I feel like, everything in life. Even your career, your relationship with God. Don't wait till you feel ready. Or don't wait till you feel worthy, or that, till you feel like you actually deserve it.
One word to describe Imagine. At first I wanted to say forward-thinking, which would be two words combined. But then I started to think about it, and I think the one word that makes the most sense is honesty. And I say that because I've never been a part of a church that allows me to be as honest as I am, as blatantly honest as I am. And I think that's something that's valuable, and I really appreciate that. I say that Imagine impacted my life by way of authenticity. I felt that I was allowed to be authentic with myself, authentic about the way I felt about the world, authentic about the way I felt towards God, and being able to be more open and honest and not hide what I was really experiencing.
Yeah, they would have this March traditional birthday celebration at Makaha Beach, and that's where we met Kevin and Christine, and we just kind of hit it off and started hanging out and doing things together, supporting one another in whatever events or activities that they would participate in, and showing up to just give our love and support for those special times. The one word that I would use to describe Imagine would be moments. To me, there were so many special moments within my journey with Imagine.
I feel like my story I felt like when I came to Imagine, my story felt a little bit different than a lot of people that were going there. Or I'm just being overly critical of myself, but I came from a really conservative Christian background. My dad is a pastor, and I was also homeschooled, if that explains anything. But just really, really conservative Christian background. And I was at a place where I just couldn't reconcile this idea of a very loving and accepting God who would do anything for humanity, and yet the church was the most judgmental place that made you feel so unworthy and so unloved. Like, that didn't make any sense to me.
If I did not have a life with Christ, there's probably a really good chance that I would not be here. By way of reckless life, but also by way of I don't know how to put this, but there's a good chance that I probably would have taken my own life at this point. And I think it's because of my relationship with Christ and changing the way that I view life, and knowing that regardless of what's going on in my life, that the creator of the universe loves me. And I think that gives me so much motivation just to make it through each day.
But in the midst of it all, wound up finding a family. And if this is your first time checking out Imagine, you're still not sure if you're all in or not, my encouragement to you would be, jump in. Get in a family room. Get to know the people that are in this community, because this is a community that is about realness, is about sharing life and life to the fullest. And I can't believe it's been 7 years.
Imagine is so vulnerable, and I don't want to just throw that word around because I know it's used so often. Like, I've never heard the word vulnerable so much until Brene Brown and Imagine. But at the same time, it's so true. There is such an honesty there, and that space that allows you to be honest and not judged for where you're at has allowed me to grow, not just in myself, but watching other people grow and being able to walk with them on that journey.
It was a very beautiful time early on. It was an imaginative time. It was a very, I would even say, naive time of us going all in.
I wasn't naive.
Risking everything, moving back here to Hawaii.
That's the moment when you begin something. It's like, can you take that first big risk?
Yeah. All of the people that you see in that film, that first film, we didn't know any of those people when we moved back here on the island. And I think that that's a huge testimony of God's faithfulness. This call that Kevin and I avoided and tried to deny, this call of, moving back to Hawaii and starting a church.
We wanted to move back to Hawaii.
But starting a church, talk about feeling the sense of not being qualified or incompetent or even just not wanting to do it at all. But when God calls you to something, you will feel forever restless until you surrender to that.
I love that Imagine has been such a big part of my family story. Wes and I grew in our dating relationship there at Imagine. We got married and the Sweeneys did our wedding. This is perfect timing because even our son's first birthday party was at a bar. Like, who can say that your kid's first birthday was at a bar? But this kid, his first birthday party was at Bevy, thrown by the lovely people at Imagine.
And so when I look back at that film, it kind of feels like a trailer to a film, where at the end you see all of us coming together, on this journey. You're like, what happened to them? Like, where are they going? And what happened to those characters? And where we were going and where we still are going is following Jesus.
What you see are people who love God and want to follow Jesus into the future. You know, like to build on the past, but to follow Jesus into the future. And the film it's a beautiful film, but I think that's exactly what it is. It's like a trailer for a movie. The movie didn't get started yet, but what you see there is like, this is who we as pastors, and this is who we all as a community collectively want to become. And the question is are we going to stick around long enough to build that, to co-create that with the Spirit of God, and to actually make that happen together?
This is from Auntie Lois. I'll always remember our Diamond Head living room days when you had to introduce yourself. I felt like a mama hen with all her babies, one of the oldest in the group of about 20. Hi, I'm Auntie Lois from Makaha. I'll be honest, I felt a little strange, but as soon as the praise singing started, it was the seal, the keeper to my heart. I love the closeness and the comfort it brought amongst all of us. The drive didn't matter, the fellowship did. Imagine 7 years has gone by, and we're still looking forward to many more years to come.
There would be times where Christine and I would dream of a community in the future. We would imagine the kind of community that could be this, that could be that. And there was a moment where we came to the conclusion that the only way for the community that we dreamed of to become a reality was for us to actually be the ones to initiate it.
Wait, really?
Weren't even asked.
Thank you for Imagine, Lord, and praise for all you do, things that are happening,
Like Savannah's gonna save lives. Like she's gonna save lives someday.
We're making it happen. Wait, did you put it in the right way?
This place does not make sense. And for me, it's like, let's be excited about it. Life itself comes along and says, yeah.
Are you the king of the Jews? Asked Pilate.
We would meet together and pray, and we would drink, and we would imagine.
Imagine is trying to reclaim the church's place, not as people who are just living within culture, but as people who are actually shaping the cultural environment as a whole. We want to be people who tell the best stories, who make the best films, who throw the best parties.
Lord God, thank you so much for the life of Brian and what you're doing.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Hi, Kristen, we did it!
So beautiful.
The most beautiful thing about Questions is that it truly positions you on a journey, on a quest towards discovering truth and life and love and God.
Is that what we look like before kids?
I just kept saying, I can't believe that we did this.
I look back, I'm like, I can't believe we've been doing this
I
for so
cannot
long.
believe, that we did this, and just, man, those were some really hot days at our house. We had no AC, so I was just getting flashbacks watching so many of those moments of, wow, we did it.
You forget, but it's so special.
This was my one of my favorite Imagine videos. It might not be as polished as the first or the other ones, that we're gonna show in a little bit, but
because besides our interviews, it was all shot on iPhone.
Yeah, everything that you saw, all the footage was just straight iPhone footage collected from different people that were part of our church at that time, and there's no editing. It's just the raw moments captured of what Imagine was all about, whether it was the girls hanging out or our Sunday time together, or when the guys were hanging out. But those were a glimpse into the early days of our church. This was a time where you saw how it says this is just the beginning. This for Imagine was the final stages of us meeting in our home.
Yeah.
And so you saw our living room. You didn't see it because it wasn't zoomed in, but man, I feel bad. We rented at that time, and I felt so bad for the owners when we moved out, because our carpet with all of this
disgusting.
The stains from our church gatherings on Sundays,
wine,
and our family dinners,
stuff spilled, food. We didn't have kids yet, and it was that dirty.
We would move like side tables or furniture to kind of like hide it from when church started or when a family dinner was.
I remember when one guy was over, he's like, I've always wondered how long you guys are going to allow that fork to be under that thing in your living room, because we never even paid
But you know what?
attention.
Every stain and every spill told a story.
That video really marks the move from we were meeting in our home for almost a year and a half, and then for the first time, we're going to move into a public space for worship. So that's what that video really marks.
And when we would meet in our home, it started off with like 7 or 10 people, in our living room.
No, we had like 15 the first night. Not
We'll
7
double
to
it
10. No, we were double digits.
There were
every
times.
time.
There were definitely
double
times.
digits.
There were definitely times where there were 7 or 10 or even maybe 5. But you know what? I gotta tell you, whether it was 7 or 15 or whatever number that came at different chapters of Imagine, the way how Kevin has held his conviction and the way that he's held himself in his teaching has always been the same, no matter how many people showed up. And so I just
I have my notes.
I just gotta
used
say
to
that.
just like
I just gotta
sit
say
like
that.
this in a living room in a circle, and I'd have my my slides on the TV.
Yeah.
And I'd have like my little notebook or laptop next to me, and I really preached the same, and I think that captures a part of like when you build something like we did in a living room of what God was doing during that season, and it's like, it's the consistency, it's the flowing together, it's the substance of who you're becoming. It's, are you going to keep showing up for people? Who are we? But the first video is imagination. This one is, now we're building, now we're discovering who we truly are, what's really real, what's really the depth, what's the substance of what God's doing here.
I mean, and even as I remember Kevin preaching, the same as how he does that sandbox at our last place to the virtual ones, I think back to even our worship crew. Our worship crew, they worshiped with the same conviction and the same passion, and there would be times where we would be in a circle and the lyrics would be on the TV, and so if you sat in front of the TV,
you can see it. You
Yeah,
can't sing. And if you're sitting with the TV, some people new would come and they're sitting down. They don't realize the TV's above their head. So when everyone turns to the screen to worship, everyone's staring at them, they're just like,
they're worshiping at them. Sometimes they would be worshiping with their hands up or like this, just like offering
one
it to
person's
them.
sitting there just like,
Okay, one word to describe Imagine. I actually have a couple of words. The first one would be real, and the second would be, I think since we've gone online, it's become more raw because we're able to hear from a different bunch of people. So those are the 2 words that I feel like describes Imagine for me. And the second one is little story that you can't even make up, and it started in Kaneohe at the. We were going up. We had a family gathering plan to go out to the Kaneohe sandbar, and all of a sudden we had two people on our boat that we had never met before, and didn't know who they were, and they're I'd actually call them the No Shame Party Crashing Sweenies. And that was our first encounter with Imagine, was taking two party crashers that had the nerve to ride on our boat out to the Kaneohe sandbar. And that was our first encounter with Imagine. Probably some of you have had that same encounter with them if you're still their friends. So that was our first time with the Sweeney clan.
So my word for Imagine is the word discovery, because I feel like discovering the church is one thing, but the other thing is having the journey to discover yourself, and that's something that Imagine has basically provided for me in my life. I'm going, or it has been 5 years that I've been with Imagine, and what got me to go was an invitation from Wes and Karen, who I actually met at an art event at a Cinco de Mayo, and I had seen a post from them on Instagram, and it's funny because I had already thought about going one night, but meeting them, they just extended it, or the invitation. What made me keep on going and showing up was the work that we were doing with the shelter with the kids. We were doing like art projects with them, and that was like the best ever. And the music, you know, when Brooke would sing, it was just amazing.
Imagine was one of the best things and scariest things I could have ever done for myself. I think it just taught me and showed me how much more there is for my life with God, and in the world, and with the church. There's just so much more, and it's been a scary journey, but one of the most fulfilling and fruitful journeys, and it's just so worth it. The community that we have, and the friends, our pastors, it's just, there's nothing like it, and I am so grateful.
I think Imagine's impacted our lives in several different ways, and I think one of the main reasons is the connection between the people and us at Imagine. We've kind of gotten out of our comfort zone, out of our little bubble that we lived in for 40 years, and got to know some unreal people at Imagine. And I feel like a lot have come and gone, but the people that we've met they've all been made a solid impact on our lives. And the church itself I just see it just growing, and it's always evolving. It's not the same thing week after week. It goes through all these different changes that I think are super positive.
There's so much to be said in terms of how Imagine has impacted my life with God, with the church in this world. But I think if I had to kind of sum it all up, Imagine helped me bring all of that together into one, and I think learn how to live into a more whole and full person, and to have just a more meaningful and fuller and hopeful life.
We first have to say, hi Imagine, 7 years, woo-hoo. When we see each other again, if this is ever over, we gotta have a luau or something. Rage. But Uncle Mark and I came to Imagine like 6.5 years ago. And I would say one of the first words I would say about Imagine is, Imagine is a welcoming place. So we were welcomed like 6.5 years ago and we never left. So that's how it is, because all the people are so nice and so diverse and caring and connected. When we started, it was at Fresh, and I can't even believe that it was so long ago. But yeah, it's so 7 years went by so quick, and I just want to say another 7 years, and love everybody, and aloha.
I think the reason I was so drawn to Imagine was just the community and the atmosphere that was there. I think it was the first time in my adult life where I felt okay to be where I was at, where I felt okay to be real, and where I felt truly seen, and where I felt like there was just this acceptance and unconditional welcome and love. I think it was a place where I learned that my presence matters, that my voice matters, that we all matter, and that we all have beautiful and special things within us to give and to let out and to create.
I remember one night just praying to God and asking Him to just provide the people, or provide where I need, the space for where I need to be during that season. And sure enough, like literally within the next week, I was attending Imagine. And now my brother's living on an island, my sister-in-law and my brother, and they both are part of the Imagine family and community. And we were laughing last week because we were just both saying, like, what are the chances that we're both going to be living in Hawaii and serving and being part of an amazing community. And I just want to say happy anniversary. It's been great being alongside the church. I want to say a big thank you to Kevin and Christine. Like, this is a celebration for you too also, because you guys are amazing, such great leaders, and you made something happen, and it's continuing, and it shows your love.
It really was this feeling of sensing like God was saying it's time to leave the comforts of your living room floors and to move into the floors of the community and the neighborhood. And that film, for Imagine, we transitioned from our home into the neighborhood of Kaka'ako.
Which that was an exciting time, because you're in your home for so long and you think to yourself, what is this gonna be like? Is this gonna work? Like, this transition into a public space almost feels like the beginning of starting again. So you always have this uncertainty, unknowing, and then you see it happen and you take off and you keep going, and you're like, we're here, we're in the next chapter, we're creating this next big moment. God is still being faithful in the way we always thought God would be, but you never really know with certainty.
And then it happens.
Keep my eyes
The Bible does not start with what is wrong with humanity and what is bad about the world. The Bible starts with what is right with humanity and what is good about the world. The world is both broken, in need of healing, and beautiful and in need of enjoyment. Before anything else, we have to understand that this is all just a gift. If we are proclaiming life, then we have to be the ones who are most alive. With Imagine, toasting during sunset is just as sacred as being present during each other's suffering. The ridiculous laughter around a table is just as important as the tears shed around the table. For Imagine, it's about everything coming together in Christ. Joy is one of the most compelling forces in the world. You can feel it. And when people have it, and it's real, and it's flowing from the depths of their soul, you know it. So it is our responsibility as Christians to live the kind of lives that other people actually want to have. Grace and joy are connected. The resurrection is an alarm clock for the world to wake up to this new creation. And with our words, we get to imagine this new creation. With our voices, we get to sing about this new creation. With our cameras, we get to capture it. And with our hands, we get to cultivate it. We get to define what is possible and what is not possible through what we create. We are still co-creating the world God originally dreamt of, the prophets imagined, and Jesus lived and died for thousands of years ago. Unlikely people in Imagine are finding life in Christ. And it's not because we've promised them life after death. It's because we showed them life before death. We showed them how the clothes they design matter, how the songs they write matter, how the images they capture matter, how every good and beautiful thing we make matters because the resurrection means that matter itself matters to God. The best translation of the word is not in Greek and Hebrew. It is in flesh and blood. And as creatives and cultivators, we get to translate the word into the environment we live in through beauty, culture, and everyday compassion and justice. The church is called to be the welcoming committee, not the managers of the guest list. We get to invite people into an encounter with the resurrected Christ. We get to welcome people home. We get to include people in the most beautiful space in the entire universe. There are too many people loved by God that don't know it because they aren't being loved by us. Love begins by embracing and affirming people exactly where they are. At Imagine, we get that the life of God is not beyond us but includes us. It's not about us but it involves us. We're not the point of it, but we are a part of it. And that's enough for us. We want to enjoy this beautiful world together. We want to create a community that creates stuff that matters. And we want to include people at the table Jesus welcomes all people to.
Good to me. Okay, so Imagine. A lot of people think it's like all about the hype or it's like this new kind of church, but really like how Kevin preaches like his theology, his views, the church's views are church is a church that is like fully affirming, that welcomes all walks of life and just wants to do life with so many people. A lot of people that just doesn't feel loved by the church, they're loved at Imagine, baby.
I think one of the things that I remembered from like our literal like first encounter at Imagine when we walked into Betty was I looked at Kevin, I was like, this guy, and it's like, you know, we went over and he walks up, and I already knew that Kevin was a pastor, and he introduced himself as he's like, hey, what's up, man, my name's Kevin. And I was so surprised because I already knew that he was a pastor, but like he didn't say, hey, I'm the pastor of this place, or hey, this is Imagine Church, or hey, this is it. He's just like, hey, I'm Kevin, like I'm a real person. I'm not whatever. And there was like no ego.
Yeah,
and I tried to like not like him because that's my deal. And it was so funny because like I just didn't, there was like no ego or anything or any like entitlement that he felt as a pastor, and I just like immediately felt relieved.
Are you admitting that you love Kevin?
Sure.
Imagine kind of came into our lives during a time where we were really broken and just needing of a safe place.
Yeah, and the next question is like, what's a word that you would describe Imagine? And I think it's based off of that. And I think for me, my word that describes Imagine in a word is just fresh. When I think about Imagine and the way that we share and live out the gospel, I think it's fresh with so many meanings in that word, you know, fresh as in just a new way to explore and talk about Jesus in a time that I believe people need another expression and a way to explore Christ. And but also just like in the hip hop sense, it's just like when hip hop came on the scene, it was just like an alternative, but it was still music. It was still telling stories, and I feel like Imagine is that. I think Imagine's fresh. That's my word.
Good one. I always think of Imagine's logo. I always go back to that, and Larry created it. But just the idea of the flag and waves and a revolution, I really feel like Imagine is consistent to truth, consistent to love, and has dared to posture itself in a way that other communities might have difficulty standing behind, and that's what we really love about Imagine. That's what we can get behind. We love that it's accepting and loving and welcoming of people wherever they're at in their journey.
One word to describe Imagine, I have 3 words actually. The real deal. Before I started coming to Imagine, Rebecca and I would have coffee and kaka'ako, and we'd run into Kevin and Christine on like separate occasions, and I was like, you know what, like the Sweeneys seem pretty cool, so I like decided to show up to Bevy one day with Rebecca, and Kevin and Christine were just greeting people at the door, and just in that moment it really felt a lot more intimate and real than the other churches that I've been to.
And so I actually just kept in contact with Kevin. And then as they moved here, like we had dinner with them sometime or another. And I had lunch with Kevin and Christine at Nico's. When Christine finally came over, I took them to Nico's. I wanted them to try some like awesome local food. So I took them to Nico's over there on Nimitz and got to know them. Maybe overshared a little, and then we just
the rest is history.
The rest is history. Yeah, sorry, I keep going more and more. But here's an interesting thing though, because I had become friends with Kevin, I was like looking at stuff he was doing online, and it was actually a post. He posted something when he had a blog, which I wish he would bring back. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
He posted a blog about prayer. Do you remember the title?
Yeah, prayer is a place.
Prayer is a place. And it was in that post that really both challenged and comforted as well as resonated with both of us. And I don't like to blow up Kevin too much, but man, we chewed on that for a lot. And that was actually like our introduction to Richard Rohr, because he quotes Richard Rohr in that post. And that began the journey actually. And so now Kevin's one of my closest friends, and we're here.
I had actually visited Imagine when I lived in Hawaii the very first time, but I only went like once or twice. I really started coming to Imagine when Tanner and I moved back out here when we were meeting in Bevy. Imagine has really strengthened my faith not only in God, I would say that it's strengthened my faith in His church, to know that there's people out there that live with love instead of judgment, and that offer hope.
There's this quote that Christine likes to say, and Kevin, is that, you know, some people don't know that they're loved by God because they're not being loved by us. And, you know, I really see that now, that God really reveals Himself in the flesh.
I just remember being really reluctant and going and sitting on that right side at Bevy near the back corner, kind of hiding out. And I remember Kevin getting up to speak, and as he started the sermon, it was like, I mean, at the risk of sounding cliche, but like the Holy Spirit within was like, yes, yes, yes. Like everything he was saying was like, yes, this is the gospel that we believe in. Like, this is the Jesus that we've fallen in love with. And I remember like squeezing each other's hands during the sermon every time there was something that was like, can you believe this? Like, this is it.
I think Imagine in a time of our lives, or my life, has allowed me to begin again, has allowed me to be undone, a little disorganized, and not have it all together, and still find a way forward in making sense with what I believe, with how I see God, with how I view the world, with how I view relationships. And has given me a place to fumble through that and still be loved and still be accepted and still be encouraged and called into newness. I think about our living room and the people and the connections and the relationships that we have that are really just like family, and we love them so much. Every single, even people beyond our living room space. It's really, Imagine has really opened our hearts, I think, in deeper ways and in deeper connections.
Because of Imagine and our involvement in Imagine, I would say that I believe in God, the church, and this world more than ever. I have more hope than I've ever had. I feel so much more deeply connected to God in a way that wasn't because of my merit or my certainty. It's because of my failures and the mystery of God. He's so much more big than I could ever imagine right now to me.
One word to describe Imagine: Ohana. Absolutely. Because it's not just a church or a group of like-minded people. What I have experienced is it's humans doing life together.
So when I first started coming to Imagine and when we started doing living rooms, I didn't really feel comfortable necessarily building those strong friendships, those deeper bonds. And that's something that Imagine has really taught me how to do, is how to really open up and be vulnerable with other people, because that vulnerability is key in building those tight bonds and those close friendships that really allow you to make an impact on each other's lives.
Imagine is a place that allows people to understand that their wounds from the church are not equivalent to wounds from God, and that even if they've been hurt by organized religion in the past, that God is excited about them. And Imagine is truly a place where
people are celebrated, not just tolerated. That's one of my favorite things that Kevin says.
I would say to other people that you're going to be hard-pressed to find a church that is as welcoming and affirming as Imagine. It's just awesome to do life with other people that are also walking in the faith, but not doing it perfectly. It's nice to practice our walk together and not to be afraid to be real, and show the mess ups and all that comes with it.
And it's also taught me how to really use my voice, especially in times where I feel like I'm being silenced, and how to bring it out even louder, just in a way that my character is still being portrayed, which has been super helpful. I say that the life with Christ and the journey with Imagine is totally worth it. I really didn't think that I'd still be in church, past the length of a year, but here I am, and no regrets. It's truly been amazing.
And the one thing I would say is you don't have to believe to belong. That's one of the cool things about Imagine is we love you right where you are and wherever that is. It doesn't matter how you grew up. It doesn't matter what your views on life are. You are welcome at Imagine, and it's all about bringing you in and making you part of that community. And I think that that is the greatest example of what life with God is supposed to be, that He wants community with us before we start trying to fix ourselves. It's all about coming as you are, being a part of the community, and allowing God to work through it.
I would say to people about our beautiful, humble, offbeat church that you have a place here. You can figure it out here. You can ask questions here, and you can be where you are. However, at some point it will be uncomfortable to just stay where you are. And that's what I love about Imagine, and I would say that's about life with Christ, is that there's always more to discover, to explore, to find, and to become. So that's what I'd say on the 7-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary, church. Since Larry addressed the church, I guess I'll address Kevin and Christine. At 7 years, just thank you. Thank you for your sacrifice, for everything that you guys do that no one sees, all the times that you spend praying for people, meeting with people, the love and sacrifice that you give, so that we can have a place of home, a sense of community.
Purpose.
Thank you so much. Yeah, keep going. Your work matters. Your work has impacted our life greatly, and this chapter will always be something we look to and reference, and you've just given so much to each of us. So thank you so much, pastors, for your love and your guidance and your continued support. We love you guys.
Love you.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy 7 years, Imagine. Kevin, Christine, you are incredible, and I hope you are proud and so just humbled and blessed and excited by the community that you've built. Thank you for being vessels, and happy 7 years, Imagine.
Imagine has been an answered prayer that I had honestly stopped praying for, like a church community that really felt like a community and a place that I wouldn't have to fake it or like put on a face. And so Imagine has transformed us, like transformed our lives.
I think like I was even at a place in life where man, I just didn't even want to be like called Christian or like anything just relating to the fact. And I feel like theologically I might have like maybe 2-3 years before that opened Pandora's box of like what the universe holds and God has for us. And I was just like, and I went too far in what Imagine did and what Kevin did over a napkin and like a couple hours in a coffee shop. He like wrote all this stuff down, and it literally like had brought me back down to like where I could just live this out and love this out with God and love Jesus. Also, the Enneagram. Like my wife knew that, but like it's blown my mind. I'm an Enneagram 7. It's blown my mind, man.
It's not blowing my mind. We all knew you were a 7.
I never read any books. I just went to Kevin's thing and I was like, oh, I'm woke.
It begins with imagination, a dream, a desire burning deep within. This sense that the Spirit of God wants to do something fresh and new and important. And it's also this awareness that somehow this new thing is going to be born out of you. This is when it's about seeing possibilities no one else can see, about taking courageous steps forward into the unknown future because you are walking into what feels like a promise.
And then you see amazing things start happening. People start connecting. Others begin to believe in the dream that you had. It's like the dream God placed in you starts to become the dream others believe God has for them. And before you know it, God is in the process of writing this new story. A new song begins to be sung. A new environment starts to be created. A new foundation is being built with the very people who felt like they gave up on the church so long ago, and yet have still longed for the truth, desired what's real, and have been thirsty for the Spirit of God more than ever. And then, without even realizing it, it's happening. The dream has been born. The miracle is taking place in the mundane, and you are becoming the church you knew God dreamt of.
And in the midst of the excitement and the dinners and the stories and the baptisms and the new things happening in the neighborhood, you start to deal with the inevitable reality of struggle. You know it's not just about possibilities, it's about persistence. It's not just about grace, it's about grit. And during that chapter, you know it's not just about having the imagination to believe in what's ahead of you, but it's about having the courage to commit to what is right in front of you. And while all of these good things are happening, you deal with the unavoidable experience of loss. Some of the people you started with are no longer around. Some of the people you've cared for and have shaped and have seen God do powerful things in are now living with the kind of courage that you've always hoped for, and yet their dreams and risks are taking them to a different place. And when this happens, you always celebrate, but a part of you still grieves. At times, you wonder if you can keep going. You silently ask from the depths of your being, does anyone really care? Does this actually matter? And then you also start asking, is there more for us? How do we keep growing and evolving? What is the next big risk and the next big adventure God is inviting us into?
And then you remember that the resurrection is not only something that happened, it's something that happens. You trust that God creating life out of death at that point in history with Jesus reveals the power that God has to create life out of death at this point in history with us. The resurrection means that this is not all that there is. The resurrection means that there's more life ahead. The resurrection keeps calling us into an adventure that is filled with more love, more creativity, and more opportunities, and more people to share this story with.
because the resurrection means that the story is not over.
And now, Imagine is making a big move into this brand new space for Sundays called the Entrepreneur Sandbox. This is Honolulu's brand new community hub to inspire creativity, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. This beautiful new space is once again liberating our imaginations for the future. A future filled with the strength of more families. A future fueled by the laughter of more kids. A future defined by compassion and justice in our neighborhood. And a future of more and more unlikely stories of individuals being woven into the fabric of Imagine and written into the story of Jesus.
I would tell people the first year of Imagine, or this into the first 2 years, I would tell people we're making decisions now that determine what we can grow and Imagine at years 5 through 7. So we can't just it's not just about quick results here, but what we decide here creates an environment that allows us to grow something unique at years 5 through 7 after we've done the foundational work. So moving into the sandbox is like, wait, after the hard season, like moving into resurrection, there is resurrection. There is new life waiting. And we did live with the integrity, not sell out, not do things quickly, not betray who we felt God calling us to be. We did the real work of the foundation of the church to get to this point where we can grow the new things we've always wanted to grow from the very beginning. After all of that, is it possible that it keeps getting better? Because we keep seeing newness around us. We keep seeing resurrection happen. We keep seeing new life, new living rooms, saying grace growing. We keep seeing new people, all of these good things still happening.
And as you say that, I think about all of these new things happening, the expansion of living rooms, people finding a place, people finding a home in living rooms, our small groups, within our church, people getting baptized, people inviting other people and being welcomed into this family, of God and into the kingdom. We just kept seeing it happen. I think about that line in the film where it says resurrection isn't just something that happened, it's something that happens. It's something that continuously happens. A sunrise reminds us that a new day is here, an invitation into something new. And so the sandbox to me truly represents resurrection.
Hey, we are Savannah and Cam. We probably have not met most of you.
We're the strangers you've been sending videos to every other week to edit, but we're excited to meet you guys in real life at some point when the world is back to normal. I remember the first time we came, starting in January, Kevin read Rachel Held Evans' prayer, and there was a line that said, blessed are the skeptics, or God bless the skeptics, something along those lines. And that really resonated with me, just because it's oh, this is a place I can come with all of my religious baggage, so to speak, and it's fine, it's okay, and that's seen as acceptable.
When the reason I first felt connected with Imagine is because I feel like when you first move somewhere new, you're kind of desperately searching for anything that feels familiar and searching for a place where you feel like you belong. And I feel like Imagine so far has been that space for us. I will never forget our first day at church and kind of just hanging back afterwards and talking to Kevin for a really long time, and he had actually remembered us from a year before sitting in Bevy, and we didn't even meet, and kind of just feeling like I already feel like I belong in this place because I feel like I'm seen and I'm cared for, and not just in the cheesy pastoral way that you kind of have to, but in a genuine, authentic way. And so, yeah, I feel like that's when I first felt connected.
The day we did the paddle out that Ryan and Danny led, I remember like walking away from that being so encouraged that a church could look like that there would be like dozens of people from a religious community like going out to protest and support like Black Lives Matter. And yeah, that was just like so beautiful and had such like a huge impact on me.
So we are coming from East Tennessee, and the, you know, environment there is kind of a very surface level interaction with God and Christianity and the church. There's not really a lot of room, it feels like, to question things or kind of ask yourself, you know, hard questions or have hard conversations about God and about life. And I feel like the space that's created at Imagine is one that lets you express whatever you're feeling, even if it's not this total like all-in servicey level kind of interaction with God. And yeah, I think I just really appreciate the fact that it's a space that's created for people who can ask themselves hard questions and know that they are okay to do so.
When we started the journey at the Sandbox, or when we started 2020, I think it was, I said this song, It Keeps On Getting Better, is the defining song for Imagine this year. Some of you don't believe that because of where things are right now. But that to me is what I would tell everybody about, one, life with Imagine, but more importantly, a person's actual whole life in Christ, is it does keep on getting better. If you keep forgiving, it does keep on getting better. If you keep letting go, if you keep surrendering, if you keep practicing acceptance, if you keep choosing courage, if you keep taking those risks, if you keep refusing to settle, then it does keep on getting better. All the seasons of Imagine, it keeps on getting better. The people we love who help build the foundation who aren't here, but it keeps on getting better. The hard things we've been through, it still keeps on getting better. Things can get harder and still get better.
And so for the 7-year marker, we gifted our core team with a certain kind of Monstera plant. And it was this beautiful plant. And the leaves, if you look at it, they're heart-shaped, but they're upside down. And it's a certain kind of Monstera leaf where it actually will close in on its own and it'll open up on its own. And there's nothing that you can do to control it. You could put it out on the sunlight and you could have 3 different leaves, and even though it's under the same conditions of sunlight and the same soil, a certain leaf might coil in and might close up, whereas the other 2 leaves, or however many leaves were on that plant, will be opened up. And so I think about that plant and I think about our community by that movement of some plants, some of the leaves are opened and some of them are closed up. And you don't know when one leaf is gonna open and when one leaf is gonna close. Kind of like the individuals and our journey with God. There's gonna be seasons and moments where you feel like you've opened up to God and you've opened up to others and you've opened up to yourself and you're growing and you're flourishing. And then all of a sudden there might be moments where you feel like, wait, am I regressing? Am I closing in? I thought that I was way ahead of where I'm at. How come I'm shrinking back? Or how come they're shrinking back? And how come they're closing in? But regardless of the movement and where your leaf might be positioned, the beautiful thing about the journey of God and our community of Imagine is I've seen people find home and find for the first time a deep groundedness and a deep rootedness in love and in peace and in life with God. I have seen through people's journey with Imagine how your openness helps encourage other people's openness to flourish with life as well. I have seen you, Imagine Church, your invitation to other people experience a new home in this beautiful garden, a flourishing life that continues to happen.
I want to tell people you're not alone. I want to tell people that grace is always present. I want to tell people that even when you fall, if you let yourself, you always fall into love. I want to tell people that there's an immovable center point in the universe in Christ, that no matter what shifting or swirling or no matter what waves come, there is a way to have that centered, grounded, anchored point, like Hebrews 6:19, the word anchor used to describe Christ. Like I've given my life to keep telling people that, to help leading people towards that, to show people there's a way for all of that, that sense of feeling home, that sense of knowing you're seen, that sense of the knowing that you are known, all of the things that all human beings desire and look for in the wrong places are come to completion and are found in their fullness in Christ. And we've been saying that, and we've been leading, and I want to keep giving my life to that, because I know what it does, what it means, and what being grounded in God can do to make us whole as human beings.
I felt those words. I felt them so deeply where my eyes began to well up in tears. And if I could leave you, Imagine Church, with any words, that's I'm just so proud of you. I really am. Man, you have grown. Again, no puns intended with that plant visual, but I have seen you grow. Though there might be moments where you might have felt like have shrunk back, would you know that Kevin and I are so proud of who you've become and continue to become. Kevin and I have seen you embrace challenging times, and we have seen you not allow those hard moments to define you, but you have gone toe-to-toe to hard moments, and you have risen strong. You really have. You're stronger now. You're wiser now.
Yeah, I want people to know COVID is not the end of Imagine. Everyone's adapting, but COVID is not the end of Imagine. The next anniversary, there will be more videos of more chapters, and you can be a part, you can be one of the main characters of helping write that chapter. You could be one of those next people who we tell stories about, one of the next people who define the journey, because who Imagine becomes is always contingent upon who God calls into this community and who sticks around. So would you know, you could play a massive role in God's story in this universe at Imagine. You could meet people who will see you with the very eyes of God seeing you at Imagine. You can meet people who help open your heart to the love of Christ at Imagine. So I want to keep believing that this isn't the end. This is another new beginning. There's a whole new life ahead. So many more chapters, so many more videos, so many more moments, so much more that the Spirit of God is going to do through Imagine. Do you want to be a part of that thing that the Spirit of God is doing in this world? Because Imagine is one of the many beautiful places where God is doing that.
I will sing of your goodness, I will sing of your love. Though the seasons come quickly, you have always been enough. Though the night may get darker, though the waiting seems long, you have always been faithful to remind me of your love. And you are good. In the morning I'll sing, you are good. In the evening I'll sing, you are good. You are good to me. In the evening I sing, you are good. You are good to me.
Imagine Church, year 7. We did it, and we did it together. And I would love to be able to pray for all of us.
Are you gonna pray for the people?
I'm gonna pray for the people as we move into this new chapter together. And so,
Do I need to close my eyes? I'm gonna close my eyes.
dropping his one-liners and cracking jokes. Never a dull moment. Here we go. Come on. Lord, we thank you so much for your faithfulness, so much for your provision, so much for your love and your unending grace. And we thank you for these men and women who have allowed us to experience a depth of the fullness of who you are by their love and by their presence and by their relationship. And I pray, God, that you would continue to write beautiful moments of awe and wonder, more chapters to come, God, as we enter into this new season. Would you give us the strength? Would you give us the stamina? Would you give us the courage to continue to be who you have called Imagine to be? And Lord, I pray over this church that you would rise up the men and women and that they would take their place, God, the place that you've called them to, with a sense of reckless abandonment and childlike faith, God. And would they run, God, the race that you've called them to? And would we run collectively together towards the kingdom and to the fullness of what you've called us to? And so with that said, Imagine Church, we want to say the benediction. We want to read and pray the benediction, a good word that has been spoken over to the people for thousands of years that we has kept as a tradition. And so Kevin, you're snickering because you probably heard me say not thousands.
Well, she wouldn't say, I didn't even say we have, he said we has.
Okay,
So with
I'm
that said,
gonna give you a little glimpse, guys.
No.
I'm gonna give you a little glimpse, guys, okay? Guess what time it is right now? You can't
What
really
time
see
is
it.
it? I don't even wanna
Can't
know.
even see it.
It's like,
It's
what,
10:05. It's 10:05 right now,
So with
okay?
that
10:05
said,
p.m.
We love you
so.
guys. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on
10:05
you
p.m.
and be gracious
Just
to
to
you.
you.
And may the
The
Lord turn his face towards you.
and give you peace. And the community of Imagine says, Amen.
Love you guys.
Let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love dares us to see. We'll all be free. In these desperate times, love will hold us here. Love will join our hands, teach us to have no fear. So we lay our head down to wash their feet. When we see our brother, oh, we'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. Let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love dares us to see. We'll all be free. Let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love dares us to see. We'll all be free.
We'll be free, free. We'll all be free. We'll be free.